Yo, 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 yo. We are back. Part two of the double header. Real talk with Rajan. Go ahead, tell your people to tell your people to tell their people that we are live. We are live. We are live. We are live. I have Dr. Arlecia Simmons on today. I'm gonna have a great interview. I'm excited for you guys to get to know her. We've been talking a little bit before, and I'm excited about this interview. Go ahead and share this out. If you watched my previous interview earlier today with Tabitha D. James, why I forget her name real quick. Tabitha D. James. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't get to check it out, make sure you do. Go to my website, www.realtalkwithrajan.com, or go to the YouTube page. We're just giving you guys a little opportunity to get in here. We're going to get started right at 7 p.m. I am interviewing Dr. Arlecia Simmons. So go ahead and share. Let the world know we are here, and it's about to go down. I'm actually sharing on my end now because I want you guys to know I am now live interviewing Dr. Arlecia Arlecia Simmons. Join us now. Do it. All right. What time is it? 58. All right, let's get right to it.
Great adult children.
Awesome.
It's definitely in the community. He did run for Senate 2 years ago. What?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So he was.
Let's talk about the founding of the Distinguished Gentleman's Club.
Absolutely. So about 8 years ago.
You said you're a mother. So how many children?
I have 5 kids.
Okay.
Where they started saying that I was their African American, and they got this from our president. They were voted.
What were you doing with your job? The first or the second time? Before the first time.
So I was in and out.
Good. Awesome. So that really is a great place to transition.
And who is sitting across from me or beside me is never going to sway that.
Listen, man. One, I'm not gonna cry on this episode.
Yeah.
I made it through all of these episodes. I think I've cried once in Congress. What are the things that you're most proud of accomplishing? As a congressman and as whip.
Real Talk with Rajan.
Hello, world, and welcome back to Real Talk with Rajan, when nothing's off limits. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with me, and I appreciate that. I am your host, Rajan Lewis. Now, here on Real Talk with Rajan, everything's debatable. Any given week, we could be discussing anything from sports to music to politics. You name it, we'll discuss it. For those who are new to the show, Real Talk with Rajan also has a goal of shining a light on the great things and the great people that are right here in the Low Country and beyond. Now, today, we earlier talked to Miss Tabitha James. We were in Florence, a.k.a. Lakeview. And right now, we're going to take our Chattanooga choo-choo train all the way to Orangeburg, South Carolina, to interview Dr. Arlecia Simmons. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, my name is Dr. Arlecia Simmons. Online, you can find me at Dr. Lecia. That is a part of my brand. I am a child of the Low Country. So I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, at the Medical University of South Carolina. And my family lives down there. And I went to high school at St. Andrews Parish High School.
Go Rocks.
Go Rocks. And class of 92. And I'm excited to be with you this afternoon.
Okay. You might have been in my cousin's class. My cousin Mike was, I think, in the class of 92.
Okay.
Michael Burns. I don't know if you know him. But but yeah, thank you so much for joining me. So just in case, just because you're new to the show, to make sure I, let you know, we like to have a little fun here on the show. So we
Okay.
want to start off talking about, before we get to, grown Dr. Arlecia, and you're
Mhm.
talking about, your wonderful book that you've written. I want to get to, let's go way back
Okay.
in the time.
Okay.
Tell us about little Miss Arlecia before you became Dr. Arlecia.
So Little Miss Arlecia was kind of like Little Magic, if you ever remember a
Little Magic. Yes. Dance for Little Magic.
I had little magic tendencies, okay, out in these streets. And so I went to Mary Ford Elementary School, and it was there where I kind of started to develop as a public speaker. I did a little singing. I grew up in New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. But I was Little Magic. I was Little Magic in the making. I was not shy ever. My parents are really young, and so my grandma, who's still alive, tells the story. When my mom would come home from Benedict College, I'd meet her in the front yard. Hi, I'm Lovey's little girl. And so she couldn't hide the fact that she had a child in high school, because I was always there to greet everybody. So I always had a very big personality. I was always told I talked too much. And I struggled with eczema. So as a child, I was bullied and sometimes ostracized. And so, when this the shooter, they said, someone was being bullied. I'm like, just because you're bullied, you don't like damage other people. Yeah. And so I think I learned a lot of lessons. I learned how to be alone and how to create. And so because I was an only child in my home, I had to be very creative. And so that creativity has aided me in adulthood and developing to be an independent person, not having children around. Then that means I can kind of navigate the world by myself. It's not desirable sometimes, but I know how to entertain myself, and I enjoy my own company.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned, you had a mom who she had you in high school?
My parents had me, my mom was 15, my dad was 17. So they had me very early on, and my maternal grandparents helped me to raise me. And my grandmother was like, you are going to college, little girl. Yeah. So my mom was the third out of her siblings to go to Benedict College, and she graduated. Yeah.
How was that for you? And I'm trying to think of a good way to ask this question. How was that, for watching your mom go through that as a teenage mom, going through, still graduating from high school, still going to college and graduating from college. How did that, how did that inspire you, as you were growing up and watching her?
I think so. When I was in graduate school getting my PhD 25 years after she graduated from college, my mom went back to school and got her master's degree. So it did, influence me. I think my grandparents, even though one had a 4th grade education, the other had a 6th grade education, like they believed in education. So out of their 5 children, they sent 4 to college, 3 have degrees. 2 have master's degrees, and then I am, the person with the terminal degree in my family. But I think, education was just something that I knew was valued. My grandma was like the PTA mom, and so she was the PTA mom with her kids. She was the PTA parent with me, and so you just kind of, I think it's all about modeling. And so I saw my mom work 2 jobs and catch 4 buses to work. Wow. And so, when you're in school, and that's why when I teach college currently, but when I talk to some of my students, I'm telling them, I'm like, do you know the sacrifices your parents are making for you to be here? Right. Like, and you're just like not coming to class, so seeing my mom catch 4 buses, going to work in the morning to MUSC, leaving Union Heights, catching a connection, getting on another bus, going to Sears to work, and then getting on another bus, going downtown, and then catching the bus back to Union Heights, then you're like, I have to do something, and I have to, work hard in school because I get everything I want. And so if I'm getting everything I want, then the basic requirement is for you to do what you're supposed to do as a child, make good grades, respect your elders, and just, be Little Magic. Okay.
Yeah, be a Little Magic. So so I also am like a grandparent's child. It's like I'm a grandparent's baby too. Like I have my mom, of course, in my life and everything. But I went to live with my grandparents at a young age. So I completely understand what you mean about that. So you said you were only child, correct?
With my mom, and then my mom had a child when I was 13 and a half. So I have another sibling with my mom. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, and you said that, gave you that star, potential. You went, after you graduated from high school, you went straight to college?
I went straight to college. I went to Winthrop, got into Winthrop, technically applied to 2 schools. Like I applied to North Carolina A&T and Winthrop. And Winthrop had people calling me, they were writing me letters. And North Carolina A&T sent me a letter. It was like, all right, pay this fee. You can get in. My mom was like, Winthrop just felt really comfortable to her. It was closer. They gave me some scholarship money. So I went there. And, every now and then I wonder what life would have been like if I'd gone to A&T, gone to an HBCU. And then I think about all the amazing people I've met at Winthrop, and I would not have them in my life had I not gone to Winthrop. So I think it was the best decision for me.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. I also thank you for sharing the part about, that double consciousness aspect of it when you talk about going to a PWI versus going to HBCU. I'm a College of Charleston grad, but people always ask me, why didn't you go to HBCU? I'm like, I went to school when I was 28 years old. And I already had a family. So I already had a family and everything. So I wasn't going to be driving to Orangeburg or doing all online classes so I can go to HBCU.
And I don't think that was a big issue for me. A different world was on at the time. My mom was an HBCU graduate. So there was a discussion about an HBCU. But by the time I got to college, I had been on 6 college campuses. So unlike other students, they've never been to a college, because of our church affiliation. I had been to Winthrop when I was 12, and that's where I fell in love with the campus. Had been to Morris, had been to Benedict, had been to Lander, had been to College of Charleston for Upward Bound. My aunt went to USC, so I spent weekends with her. So I kind of had some knowledge of college, and I also knew what I was looking for as it relates to what would sustain me for the 4 years. Yeah,
I love that. That. So you get your undergrad. What's your undergrad degree in?
In journalism.
Oh, okay. So I'm talking to a pro. Let me step my game. Oh, so, hold on 1 second. Let me restart this whole now.
Get it together.
So, all right. So you finish your journalism degree. That's your undergrad, and then what's your master's in?
I have a Master of Arts in Journalism from the University of South Carolina. I got that 4 years after finishing my bachelor's degree. And then 4 years after that, I went and got my PhD at the University of Iowa. Go Hawkeyes.
Okay.
Then while I was finishing my PhD at the University of Iowa, I answered my call to ministry. So then I went and got a Master of Divinity degree from Duke University, Duke Divinity School. Yep. So got a lot of student loans. That's why I got to sell this book. Okay.
Hey, I understand. It's no thing. So professionally, so while you're working your way, while you're going through PhD process, your doctoral, getting your degrees. Were you like working throughout that, or were you just straight school?
The gift, I think, of my experience, and everyone has a different experience, is I stopped school for each of my graduate degrees. So, some people say, well, I'll work and go at night. I'm not that kind of girl. Like, I'm tired. Like, I just need to do one thing. So for my master's degree, I was working in public relations. I stopped in December, entered the program at USC in January, and just did school. I had an assistantship at the university, and then worked some, I hustled, did some little contract stuff here, making snow cones, whatever I did, $9 an hour for 10 hours a day, whatever. And then when I went to the University of Iowa, I quit my job as an instructor. I was teaching college, and I just left and moved my stuff to Iowa. Wow. And I was blessed with a fellowship, which allowed me to technically only have to work for half the time of my program. So I didn't work my first year, worked the 2 years, and then the last year I didn't have to work. So I was able to just write and try to get out.
Wow. I love that. So, and now you're a college professor at SC State?
No, we're not going to talk about that. We talk about my book. So
okay, all right. We're not going to talk about. Okay, cool. All right, I'm with it.
No.
I'm with it.
Now I am a college professor, so I continue to teach. And do that and write and try to, continue to be Little Magic, the senior citizen version of Little Magic. Right?
Okay. All right. So let's talk about. So what got you into? Because you're a journalism undergrad, and your matriculation's been through the journalism realm until you got to your divinity degree. What got you into writing?
I'm not sure if it was writing initially. I just love storytelling. So I was always a talker. And so I love to, I'm not sure if I could even say I love to read, but I started doing theater. And so as I started doing theater, I thought for a time I was going to become a theater teacher. My mom thought I was going to go into music or something. But when I got to school and I had to pick a major, I was like, I don't know what I really, really, really want to do. So I was a debutante in Charleston, and I remember in the bulletin, I said I wanted to be a marketing executive and own a marketing agency. So when I got to school, I said, I'm going to major in communications. I knew that back then in the early 90s, you had some expectations of how you would look on air. So nowadays you might see somebody like me doing the 5 o'clock news, but back in the day, you had to be skinny, you had to have a certain voice, certain hair. And so I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it in TV.
Yeah.
So I decided to become a journalist because it's still about storytelling. And so, my niche was lifestyle stories. So to interview someone, to hear whatever their story was, and then write a story. And then hopefully by the time I'm finished, you're crying. And so, thankfully I was able to do that very early on to get a job in journalism. I had my first journalism job 3 weeks out of college. So I graduated May the 4th and started my job May the 29th. Because I was working while I was in school. And so, I think it's all connected. So you said journalism and then ministry. It's all connected because of storytelling. And so with journalism, I'm telling your story or the story of the person who had the fire, or the story of the person who overcame cancer. With religion or with, being a minister, I'm telling God's story. So it's all about storytelling and communicating in some way. And as a minister, you communicate the gospel.
That's a great correlation. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. They don't think of, the thorough, like the straight throughness of, storytelling to ministry. I mean, a lot of pastors, all they do is they take scriptures and they tie stories to go to that relate to the scriptures. So what got you into the ministry then?
Before I went to get my PhD, I was wrestling with, the call to ministry. So when I talk about being little magic, I was doing a lot of little magic stuff in the church. And I think I sensed my call to, I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it was preaching per se. I wasn't sure what it looked like, because you got to remember, especially growing up in Charleston, you don't necessarily have women in ministry being validated.
Right.
So you have women as evangelists, you have women as missionaries, but you don't have women in the pulpit per se on a regular basis. So as I'm wrestling with my call to ministry, which I believe came even in my teenage years, I was a speaker. So I was always doing some type of speaking. And I had a number of people speak over my life, and they said, you're going to be a preacher. And I was like, whatever, I'm trying to have fun out in these streets. I just started to contemplate that more. And when I was in my 30s and contemplating PhD or divinity school, I didn't really know too many people who went to divinity school. I'm Baptist, where they don't necessarily affirm women. So what am I going to go to divinity school and do other than spend money? So, I went and got my PhD, but still ended up researching the life of a female religious broadcaster who was ordained in 1929. I think it was through researching and sharing her story through research in my dissertation that I was then compelled to answer my call to ministry and to say, if this woman could be in ministry in the 1920s with 3 children, she's divorced, and God still made a place for her, then God can still make a way for you. And so that's when I did like this crazy thing and was like, I think I'm gonna go to seminary now. And I finished my doctorate degree while in seminary in my first semester. And it was, I only know it's the grace of God that allowed me, because I really should have crashed emotionally and physically trying to write a dissertation and then take a course load at Duke in a new discipline that was it was difficult, because I, had only taken one religion course up to that time. So I had to learn a new language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a lot. So how, and if you don't mind me asking, you never ask women her age.
You just asking all kinds of questions. You ask.
I know.
So we get off this call.
So I'm asking this because I'm trying to get somewhere. So like with the so when you finished your degree in divinity, what was your age range at that time?
I finished my degree in divinity school. I believe I was I graduated at 37, I think. I was 37. Wow. I was 37, and then I turned 38 a couple weeks later. So, wow. You know, and I was an older student. So I went to seminary. I'm noticing like some of my classmates, they're like, I'm 33. And I was like, how old were you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, some of my classmates were just like becoming, you know, legal when we were there because they were 22 and 23 and 24. And so there were a few of us in this cohort. We were the senior citizens, and we were, you know, 35, 36, 38. Somebody turned 40. We had a 40th birthday for her, but a number of classmates were a little older, were a little younger, much younger.
But yeah, I just said that to say, because I mean, you'd already accomplished so much by that time. Like, I mean, like that's I just could only imagine like that you know, that feeling of, you know, like, all right, I did that. Like at, you know, at that age, even at 37, I'll be graduating from my graduate degree this year. I'll have my MPA this year, and I'll be, like, I'm literally graduating the day after my 40th birthday. So, you know,
just like, whenever you do it, I think that's what, you know, everyone thinks you have to be on a time clock. And there are some things, you know, sometimes I beat myself up and say, I should have accepted my call to ministry at 19 or 20 when I heard the Lord, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't have people in my life to actually help me articulate what it was. So I think we all come to the space and time of living out our call, living out what it is we're supposed to be doing in the earth when we are supposed to be there. And you know, it's one of those things. I do wish I had done some things earlier, but that's not what happened. Okay,
absolutely.
We got what we got right now, and so you know, I have accomplished a lot. And so when people say, "Well, is there anything else to accomplish?" I'm like, "There's a lot to accomplish."
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's something I'm a big believer in. You know, continuing to pursue your education. I'm a former educator myself. I didn't teach college yet. But I taught elementary school, and so that's something that, you know, I enjoyed, and I'm very big. Like I didn't start college until I was 28 years old. So like it was definitely so when you talk about like being the senior citizen in class, that was me at College of Charleston, turning 30 and passing my ID around the class because nobody was like, they're like, you're not 30. I'm like, I'm 30 years old.
Yeah, I like older students. You know, my first teaching job, I had an opportunity to teach older students or non-traditional students, and they're the best students because they're like, I got kids, I got a job, I got a mortgage. I don't have time to not do my homework. Like I got to do my homework because I got to get this degree. So they're very dedicated. And, you know, I think even as I look and interacted with 18 and 19-year-olds, there are some people who might have benefited from a gap year or for, you know, doing some professional work. Because I think when you get on a job and you kind of see the rigor of a job and expectations, then you appreciate when you can go to college and you don't have to work on nobody's job and somebody else is paying for it. You don't appreciate that until, you know, you bring home like, I worked how many hours for $96?
Right.
So I think some people would benefit from spending some time developing life skills before they go into college, because they'd appreciate the gift of college and the gift of education.
Absolutely. Yeah. So well said. And as a professor, I'm sure you just know. So I'm not even gonna go there. So let's talk about your book.
Let's talk about the book.
Digging for Intimacy, Sex, Sexuality, and Loving God. So first of all, that title's a mouthful.
It is.
Start there. So walk us through it. What was your process of this book, thinking this book through? What let us know. Talk to us. Let me know.
So this is my second book. This is my first book. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Treasure, Jewels of Hope when Pressure and Time Collide. And so when we talk about the whole age and when you do things, I published this book technically like as a commemoration of my 40 years of being on earth. So when I turned 40, I published the book. It was actually a compilation of emails and blog posts and sermons and inspirational writing that I did mostly while I was in Iowa for graduate school. And a number of people, you know, would read it through my blog or my emails and say, why don't you compile it? So this was my first book. And I thought, why not do a digging series? And so that was a suggestion of my first publisher. And so Digging for Intimacy was something that wasn't compiled in its final form initially, but I had started to write. I had been wrestling for a number of years about writing a book for about dating. with the recent scandal that's going on. People want to hear about dating and people want to hear about relationships. So I started compiling a number of pieces, online, and that's when we were in the middle of the pandemic, and I started to just think, like, maybe I should, put all these things together. People are, concerned about living and relationships and life. And I just compiled a number of writings that I had. I worked with a book coach to try to lead and guide me because I had the material. I just needed someone to help me curate information. And that's how Digging for Intimacy, Sex, Sensuality, and Loving God came about.
Wow. So that's definitely a great series of topics, especially like you just said. I'm sorry for the stuttering.
No problem.
There's a lot of things going on. People are talking more about, what it is to have a Christian relationship and even forgiveness within a relationship. Like, what kind of topics do you actually get into in the confines of the book?
Well, my book I would call a spiritual autobiography. So it's about not necessarily what to do, it's about what not to do. So that's the premise that I base it on. I call it a spiritual autobiography because it's not a fictional account, but it's a very real account of my dating life or my life of understanding what intimacy or relationships were from childhood up until now. And so I start the book talking about my childhood and where I began to construct my understanding of relationships, construct my understanding of intimacy, start to look at people in relationships around me, my grandparents, other couples, to see how they were loving one another. And then I also talk about the relationship with my father and how, the first chapter is called Uncrowning Daddy's Little Princess. And so, there's this concept in society where, girls want to be a princess. And for some of us, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. Okay. We're not little princess. Okay. So, I talk about our relationship, and my father and I, we have a really good relationship. He read the book last week. And he was like, oh, you really had to dig in. You had to tell the stories you told. So, we talked about it before it came out. I was like, Dad, I didn't throw you up under the bus, but I am very honest about the role you played in my life during a critical time in my life where I thought I probably needed both of my parents a little bit more to be more vocal, to be more hands-on, and, to speak to me in a way in which I could kind of, make decisions and not just kind of make them on my own. So that's what the book is. It's 10 chapters, very short chapters. It's very funny. And so you have reflection questions at the end. There are some resources at the end. And it's a book I think should be read in community. So, I'm encouraging people to read it with your girlfriends. There was a mom whose older daughter had read the book. And so she bought the book for her other daughters in college. And so they were planning to read it in community. So, read it as a group of women and family, talking about relationships and, just how some of the decisions that we make, they impact us, for beyond the time period of the relationship.
Yeah, I love that from so many standpoints. Because again, sex, sensuality, and loving God. And a lot of times, I'm somebody, I was talking to you before we came on that I work with youth. I'm the executive director of Low Country Youth Services. And one of our goals is to teach young people how to effectively talk about sex and reproductive health. And we actually talk to parents about how do you talk to your kids about sex and reproductive health. And so many times we decide to not have that conversation because it's uncomfortable. Can you speak to like that's when you were talking about that chapter of how your parents could have engaged you more in that process? How do you think that would have supported you if they would have had maybe the language to be able to have that discussion with you?
Well, I talk about how, me and another friend, she has a teenage mom, and it's like conversation was like, just don't get a baby. It's like, okay, well, how do you get one? How do you get a baby? Like, let's start from point A. So, to have age appropriate, that's one of the things I promote. You need to have age appropriate conversations with children. Nowadays, children are on YouTube, and even though you can do your settings to make sure children don't get that content, children are learning more and more about sex than they ever did in my generation. So I had to find out from friends and possibly from HBO when I went to somebody's house who has some cable. So, but now it's like you could be looking at a cartoon and then pow, images. So, I think parents have to start conversations when, their children come home and they say things they heard other children say, then that's a teachable moment. When they ask about their bodies or when you're bathing them, that's a teachable moment, to gain an acceptance of their body. And at some point, you got to tell them how those body parts work.
Right.
And I think that's a part of the conversation we don't have. And so a lot of people explore and, we don't necessarily grow up with we grow up thinking sex is bad. These things I do with these body parts I do with sex are bad. And then we're supposed to be a healthy adult like 20 years later.
Right.
And so I talk about that in the book, how you're formed at a young age will determine some of the things that you may choose to do later.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So said this is like an autobiographical kind of book. In that regard, how hard was it for you to be honest about everything? You seem to be a pretty open person, but even in the most open people, when you start writing about yourself, sometimes you feel like the need, to smooth things over so that, maybe was that something that you faced, or was that not an issue for you?
It was an issue. It was an issue because I had to think through what would telling some of these stories, one, due to my character or what people thought of me, what people perceived about me. I also had to think through some of the scenarios of me writing about my interactions with other people. So, of course, I'm not trying to get sued for libel or... for writing about people, but it's all truth. I'm not making anything up. It's all the truth. Now, you might say, well, I don't remember the story like that. It was how I remember the story. Plus, I keep journals, so I got the story. Okay, I keep journals. So it was more about, how, and if you go and read the reviews on Amazon, that's what people said, like, whoa, it took a lot for you to tell these stories, to be so transparent. And so I thought, honestly, at some point I thought about even writing a novel. I knew that novel writing is serious. And so even though, I know some of the conventions of novel writing, I was like, I don't have time to go take no class. So it's formatted right and the character development. I was like, let me just tell my story. Okay. Because sometimes people will delve into a genre and not realize there's a commitment to that genre. And if you're going to be good at that genre, you need to learn the conventions of it. I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm not taking no more classes. I can tell my story. I'm a journalist. I can tell this. I can develop myself, my story, my voice is my voice. So yeah, it was difficult. But I think the gift of all of it, I think it's best to tell your own story while you are yet alive. And so, years from now, what is it that I'm going to leave in the earth? And so if this book could be used in a college classroom, there's someone I saw on Twitter. They teach a class called Black Women's Sexuality in the South. I'm like, I think I need to be on the syllabus.
That's very specific.
But they're using a lot of older texts from people who are no longer here. And I'm like, this is a contemporary text about Black women's sexual experience in the South. And so, I think I can contribute to the literature in a variety of ways. This could be a book that could be used in a church setting, in a life skills setting, in a school setting. And so I'm just hoping that through my story, it's not just about me writing a book to say I have a book, because I already have another one. I've already written a dissertation and a master's thesis. But it's about, how does my story help someone along the way? And my readers, they're now mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers. And even one of my male friends, he sent me a review and he said, this can help me as a man. He says, now I know what to talk with my daughter about, and my daughter and my son about as they grow up.
So I want to talk about the aspect of loving God in the confines of this, because again, just thinking about, what's normal and what society says, for a long time, especially in the church, all you taught was abstinence. You didn't teach anything outside of abstinence in the church. Can you talk about how your work in the ministry, and with being a minister, being someone who's in the church in a position of leadership, why was that important to you to include in this book?
I think it's important because you have a lot of Christian women who are wrestling and navigating, single Christian women navigating their faith through their faith journey and navigating through their sexuality journey. Okay. So, it's either, this remorse or this guilt, or this, I feel guilty because I have needs, or I feel, the sexual desires that God wired you with. And so I'm not telling you to go out and bag everybody you can, but I'm trying to affirm, I guess, that we're wired this way. Like God wired us in this way, and you can still have desires, still be sensual, and then still love God, and then wrestle with all of it at the same time. Yeah. And, I think in just recent days, recent weeks, even when we look at the popular culture examples, like as soon as we get off, I'm about to go watch Married at First Sight. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready. So there's a character on there, and we see how she's navigating her faith in the context of trying to exist in this dysfunctional relationship. Because she believes it's of God. And we're like, no, girl, read the Bible again.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
And so, even with the Jackson situation, his wife came on and she started quoting scripture about what God and so women are always wrestling with their faith in tandem with wrestling with their sexuality. And I'm not sure if men are as vocal about it as women are. And so I don't think often women have the space to have the discussion. So, I kind of went on the ledge and said, well, let me have this discussion. Maybe you can enter into the discussion. Maybe you can't. As I said, it's not a book for everyone. Someone posted information about the book on another page, and someone said, well, I've read the back of the book and I don't know what this is about. And I was like, maybe the book isn't for you. Okay. Because it sounds like you want to about this kind of intimacy, and this is about this, and this is about this. I was like, sis, I think you want a whole nother book. This is not a theoretical book. So if you're looking at me to cite and do a lit review and all of that, I ain't do all that in here. I ain't did all that. Sorry. I'm just telling you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm sorry.
I like you. I would take your class. This is, I like you. So do you have any ideas of any other books that are going to come up, or is this, because I know you said you thought about writing a novel, you don't want to write a novel. So it's is this something, I know you said you write the Diggin series. So is there another book in the Diggin series that's coming?
There are books, but I'm so tired working, I can't get to the other books. But there are some other books I'd like to write for a variety of different individuals. There's a book that's sitting on the computer that just needs to be curated. When I say curated, and I need to bring in an editor to kind of help me gel it together. And I want to talk about transitions. And so, just the various transitions I've been in, and how at each point of transition, there's a building of faith, and there's also a building of fear, and there's a building of anxiety. And sometimes they're starting over and failing and, coming back up. And so I want to write a book. And then there's a book I have that I've been working on about, Gullah Geechee culture and my background, growing up in Charleston. And there are a number of titles under this series that I've written down. I just need the time and the space. So if anybody out there, if you just want to find, you got an extra $100,000, you just want to gift me, I can become a nonprofit for you, and we can just write those books. So yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
I love that. And I also see that you have so many sweetgrass baskets in the back. Can you speak to why those are important to you?
I'm a collector of sweetgrass baskets. I also do some work as a Gullah Geechee ambassador. So there are a number of people, educating about the culture. So I try to get in where I can fit in, helping people to understand the richness of our culture. It's the art that I can afford. And so I think, I see it as art. I don't see it as just something extra. So I know with each basket, there's a story, and the story is the basket weaver. Some people call themselves basket sewers. When I went to Georgia, I said, excuse me, however you choose to call yourself, that's fine with me. But they all tell a story. So, this one was made by a male artisan, and these were made by some people who live in Hanahan. And this one my grandma gave to me as a larger one. You can't really see. And this one was made by a young girl who was 14. And so I
Wow.
got the sweetgrass roses I bought from some little boys. You know, the little boys, they've been running off the street. I bought them
Yeah.
all of their roses. I was like, go home and just give me all of them. And so, you know, everything has a story. I like to just continue to promote the culture, so into the people who continue to keep the culture going. And yeah, that's about it. I just love the fact that it's very unique. It's still attached to, it's one of the remaining art forms that's attached to our ancestors in Africa. And yeah, I just love having them around. And it's unique. It's not like I didn't go to TJ Maxx and get them. I'm not saying that's wrong with TJ Maxx.
No,
but
don't go to TJ Maxx to get your.
You know, they have some great decor. I'm just saying, I know there's always a story. Like I end up having a whole conversation about history and who your mom is and how you learned it. And so I love being able to have stories to attach to the things in my home.
Absolutely. I remember when I was a kid, my granddad, I used to, I told you I was a grandparents kid too. And my granddad used to go to the post office on Broad Street to get his mail. And I always remember the ladies would be out in front of there. He would always have these conversations with them. So that's always my association with sweetgrass baskets. I don't own any.
Okay.
But
you gotta get something.
I'm gonna get one now because of you. See,
you gotta get something.
So let me ask you this. All said and done, what has Dr. Arlecia Simmons added to the world when people talk about Dr. Arlecia?
What have I added to the world? Well, I add a lot of laughter to the world. So I make people laugh. I make people, I hope, my prayer is that you will remember some joyous moment with me, or even through digital means, something you've read that I've written that has lightened your load. I try to inspire and inform people. So I think there's a role that has to be played. So, you know, I'm always trying to help people become better. And so whether it's providing information or a different way to do something, you know, I'm trying to just kind of help people be better. So I think that's possibly, you know, if I can inspire, if I can help somebody as I lead along this way, you know, then my living will have not been in vain. So, you know, hopefully every day I inspire someone in some way, whether you are looking at me as a model and you're pointing to your children and saying, look at her, she did this, or you see kind of how I'm overcoming whatever I'm overcoming on a day-to-day basis, and that inspires you to keep going.
I love that. I love that. That's a great way to go through life. Where can they find, as we wrap up, where can they find you on social media? I'm posting all your links now, but you can.
On social media, you can find me. I have a Dr. Arlecia page on Facebook. On Twitter, I am on Twitter, I'm Dr. Arlecia1. And you can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram. That's Dr._Lecia. And you'll get a lot of laughs if you follow me on one of those. You know, I do some videos, I do some stuff for the people. And then you can go to my website, and that's drlecia.com. You don't have to do www. It's just drlecia.com. And that's where you have information. You can book me for a speaking engagement. I do amazing virtual presentations. And you can order the book there. I can sign it for you, or you can go to Amazon, where the book is also available.
Right, but if you buy it straight through her website, she probably gets a bigger cut of it. So buy it from her website.
Yeah. But if you got Amazon and need the free shipment, go ahead and do that too. Either way.
Either way. But I put all the links down there. I got you right here, right there. So make sure y'all go to drlecia.com. Look her up on Facebook. She's Dr. Arlecia on Facebook, and then the link to her Amazon right there as well. I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been amazing. I've had a really good time talking to you, getting to know you. I hope you keep in touch. And if you end up in Charleston, let's do lunch or something.
Definitely. And when is your graduation going to be?
December 18th. I haven't even announced that yet. December 18th.
That was my graduation from my PhD program. I didn't even go to my graduation. I was so tired. I went on a cruise.
I feel that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get my PhD. I'm not going to get my PhD. I'm not. I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to move on to my next phase of life where I'm not writing papers all the time or reading.
Yeah, and I don't think everyone, and I know some people like to be called doctor, but you really need to decide what is the end game for your PhD. So
Right.
if you're not going to be in the academy and that you're not focused on that, then you really need to think twice about getting the degree. I started to stop in the middle of my degree, and then I was like, I got one more year left. I'm just gonna get this degree and figure it out later.
Right. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking to you. Please stay in contact. When you write the next book, or
Okay.
if you have any follow-ups, please come back and let's talk again, and let's keep it going, because I love your energy. We didn't get to talk about what you teach, but I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna Google you and find out.
Do what you must.
No, because I just think you're really interesting. I bet your students really love your class. So I just thank you so much for your time and your energy. Thank everybody who watched it tonight on both episodes. If you watch both episodes, God bless you. I really appreciate all you guys' support. You could be watching anything. There's 3 million people going live every 15 seconds. So you took the time out to watch this, and that means something to me. It's not something I take lightly. This will be on my audio podcast, where we actually show up in 18 different platforms, including Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, Pandora, anywhere you can find podcasts, as well as my YouTube channel, Facebook, as well as Periscope. So you can find us a lot of places. Make sure you watch. When you watch, make sure you leave a review, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, let me know why you liked it. If you didn't like it, tell me why you didn't like it so I can do better. Always remember, God is everything, and without him, we are nothing. So never forget where your help comes. And if a man doesn't stand for something, he's bound to fall for anything. Now that, my friends, is real talk. I will see y'all next week, where my guest will... Oh, I don't have a guest next week. I'm off next week. All right. No guest next week. I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Peace.